Went south, went up north to Canada to play some basketball with Athletes in Action, came back and was the Henry County Auditor for 13 years, and that's where I learned a lot about property taxes and working with local government. And then from there, I was a state representative for 8 years, and then got out of it for 12 years. I'm not a career politician. I worked with a company called AMP Ohio, which is made up of an organization made up of communities who own their own electric system, and then worked at Northwest State, working in workforce development. Two issues that are very important that we're dealing with right now, and then had the opportunity to go back down and serve as a state representative for 8 years, this going on my 8th year, and being term limited out, excuse me, I now have an opportunity with your support to become your state senator. And some of the issues I hope we talk about tonight, I'm looking forward to that. So again, thank you for having us.
Thank you. Mr. Riedel.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thanks, Chris, for having us. My name is Craig Riedel, and I'm running for state senator here in Northwest Ohio. It's great to be here. My wife and I, Danette, we live in Defiance. We've been married 37 years. Danette and I, we have a son and a daughter, and we've been blessed with 3 granddaughters. She and I both grew up east of here. I grew up on a farm just about 17 miles east of Tiffin on US 224, actually more like 2.5 miles east of Attica. Danette grew up just south of there in Crawford County. I graduated from a small high school called Seneca East, and Danette graduated from Buckeye Central High School. I graduated, my parents, we owned a small farm just east of Attica. We boarded standardbred horses. Me and my 3 brothers learned a lot of valuable lessons growing up on that farm, but one of which being the virtue of hard work, and that's really paid off for all of us. I went on to Ohio State. I graduated from there with a civil engineering degree. And in the fall of 1988, married my high school sweetheart, Danette, and I took a job with Nucor Steel. And that's what took us out to Defiance at that time. I hired in as an engineer with Nucor, and I ended up working there 27 years. So my background is primarily all private sector. I retired from Nucor 10 years ago to run for state representative on the west side of the Senate district, and we won. I was a 3-term state rep as well. I used to rep Defiance, Paulding, Van Wert, and the northern portion of Auglaize County. I believe in limited government, fiscal responsibility, free market principles. My wife, Danette, and I, we are proudly pro-life, and I'm a staunch Second Amendment defender. I'm a gun owner as well. I grew up on a farm. My dad was a state highway patrol officer. He taught me and my 3 brothers the proper way to handle a firearm, and there was certainly plenty of groundhog on that farm. So grateful for that upbringing, and very excited for the opportunity to be the next senator here from Northwest Ohio.
Thank you. Let's begin with the question and answer session, and we'll start with Mr. Hoops. Your opponent in this race has painted you as a career politician, despite what you had just asserted in your opening remarks. It is true that since 1999, you have spent more time in the state legislature than out of it. What do you say to those who view that as a negative and might believe that it is time for a change?
Well, I don't believe I am a career politician. As I mentioned, I was in the legislature for 8 years, was out of it for 12 years, and learned a lot, with energy, with AMP Ohio, and also with working at Northwest State Community College. So I wasn't around for 12 years and then got back in. I'm not a career office seeker. I had no desire during those 12 years to even look at coming back down to Columbus. They actually pursued me to actually run again and be appointed to the state rep race. Although, I've been involved with, I guess I call myself a career community, person, because I'm involved with the community, I'm out there with the public, and I felt that helped me, even my second time around as a state representative, to work with people, and I think experience, there's a lot to that. When I look at when President Bush was elected president, never did he think that he would have 9/11. When DeWine was elected governor, never did he think that he would be dealing with a pandemic. And I guess, what's going to happen next here in the state of Ohio, that you need somebody that's prepared, and I feel I have that personality and that willingness to work with people to deal with those issues that may come up this way. Hopefully nothing happens, but if it does, I feel I'm prepared to deal with those issues.
Thank you. Mr. Riedel, on the career politician question, in reality, you are not a political novice either, having served, as you mentioned, 3 terms in the state legislature yourself, as well as making 2 runs at Congress. Isn't playing the outsider card a little disingenuous?
No, I don't. Not at all. No, I'm definitely the political outsider in this race. I'm the one with the business background. Having worked at Nucor Steel all those years, 27 years, I believe that our government on all levels needs more business-minded acumen involved. So you see it on the federal level. Obviously, President Trump comes from that background. Bernie Moreno comes from that background. The next governor of Ohio, Vivek Ramaswamy, comes from that background. So I think, when you've been in public office for over 30 years, I think that qualifies as being a career politician. 6 years is a nice start. The benefit of that is that if we have the opportunity to represent Northwest Ohio, we'll be able to hit the ground running. Okay, so the learning curve is over. But by all means, I'm the political outsider in this race. And like I said, I think we need more business-minded, more business acumen in government, because there's a lot of tough decisions that have to be made. And having worked at Nucor, I had to make those decisions. My job performance was rated that way. If we didn't take care of our customers, and in this case, I look at our constituents as the customer. And my job in that role is to help constituents and take care of them and help them with their needs. But by all means, I am the political outsider in this race, Chris.
Let me follow up on that a little bit. As you mentioned, you talk about you bringing your business experience as being helpful in the state legislature. How so? What types of decisions would you anticipate that it would be beneficial to bring that business experience to? Do you have some specific examples?
Yeah. So, when I worked at Nucor, part of my job, I worked with the management team that was running a steel facility, and we were required every year to produce budgets for that business, and these budgets had to be accurate. It wasn't okay to run surpluses. I think one of the things that we do very poorly in government is we're not skilled at putting budgets together. It's not okay to running budgets in the billions of dollars. That's not a good thing. I mean, it sounds great on the surface, but it's truly not. That surplus money belongs in the citizens' pockets, not in Columbus. And when we hoard that money, that's not right. So I think business-minded folks have a skill set that we bring when it comes to putting budgets together. And I believe that, the budget surpluses we run, that money needs to be given back to the citizens. That belongs in your pocket, not in Columbus's pocket. And a lot of these are very difficult decisions, and unless you've had a lot of experience, putting budgets together, that's something you would naturally struggle with. So when I talk about bringing more business acumen into government, that's part of it, and also being able to make tough decisions when the pressure's on. I did that with House Bill 6. That's the bill that put Larry Householder in prison for the next 18 years. I voted against House Bill 6. I went against the party, but I did because I knew it was the right thing to do. And that was a tough decision, and I knew I was going to be penalized by the Speaker for the next 2 years because I went against his wishes. But I did the right thing. I made the tough decision under pressure, and that's what people from Northwest Ohio can expect from me going forward.
And Mr. Hoops, let me bring that back to you. What about your experience outside of the state legislature do you feel most benefits you in the state legislature?
Well, I think one of the things, when I worked with AMP Ohio, I was actually in the finance area, and one of the things we did during that time is we built a lot of generation. We built 4 hydro plants and a coal plant in Illinois, and we had to finance it with bonds, tax-exempt bonds, and that was over $6 billion. And so we had to make sure that we had, the information for the ones who wanted to buy those bonds. So working with that, I felt was very important, and so that gave me even more of an understanding of what budgets are all about. as far as being in the legislature, I mean, I think, we got graded every 2 years. And people had an opportunity to, so-called throw me out if they wanted to. And so I felt that, I represented an area way up in Northwest Ohio. In fact, I've represented over 6 of the counties during my time as a state legislator. And, I was on the finance area, and we've always been able to, over the years, we've cut the income tax, and that's something we're going to have to look at in the future. Do we cut more of it? We have to balance our budget. We had to balance the state budget, just like every household. I was involved with that. I chaired the Public Utilities Committee to deal with House Bill 6, because I supported House Bill 6 because I wanted to save the nuclear plants. And right now, luckily, we have those nuclear plants, because if you think your energy prices are high now, if we didn't have those plants, it would even be higher. And when we found out what Mr. Householder was doing, I mean, I actually stood right in front of him and said, you needed to resign because of what you did to the institution. And so my bill, House Bill 128, actually undid a lot of the House Bill 6. And so those are the things that I rely on as far as experience.
Since we're on the subject of finances, and that's come up already, let's stay on that. Last year, the legislature passed a series of bills reforming the property tax structure in Ohio, motivated by a grassroots effort to abolish property taxes entirely via a ballot initiative. Has the state done enough to ease the burden on taxpayers, or would you like to see further reforms? And we'll begin with Mr. Rito.
So our property tax system is broken. It's completely broken, and it needs to be rebuilt. This is one of those issues that the General Assembly, this is one of those cans that just got kicked down the road, and now we're in the predicament that we're in today. There needs to be bold action taken by the General Assembly, and that hasn't happened yet. There needs to be bold action taken by the General Assembly here. And how you address this, it goes back to reducing and eliminating wasteful government spending. And there's a lot of it. We don't need to be funding Somalia daycare centers. We need to take a thorough examination on the state level, on the local level, and particularly I'm talking about, like a Department of Government efficiency approach. So DOGE on the on the state level and on the local level, find that wasteful spending, because it's there. It's rampant. And once you find and evaluate that wasteful spending, that is the tax relief that we can offer Ohioans by lower property taxes. But you have to find that wasteful government spending first, and Ohioans deserve that.
Thank you. Mr. Hoops, same question.
Well, property taxes, I call it a kitchen table issue. Everybody's talking about it, and we have to do something. I consider myself a reformer, not a repealer. I feel that we have done some really good things so far. I was involved with some of those issues dating back to when I was a county auditor, understanding the property tax issue. The thing is, all that money, that property tax money, stays locally. None of it goes to the state. So what he's talking about, that's more of a state issue, what he wants to deal with. And but this is all local things. And what I want to see, we want to continue. Are we done yet? No. We still have to look at more things with the property taxes, because what we don't want to see are homes or home buyers or owners, being taxed out of their house or losing their property because of property taxes. But it's an issue that, we will continue to work on. I think we did some major things this year. But the first thing is really understanding what this property tax issue is all about, and how it affects each person out there, and how it affects the services that our local governments do. I mean, I feel they do a pretty good job locally, because this is dealing with EMS, this is dealing with this place right here, which I think they do a good job, because they do get tax dollars from property taxes. It deals with your veteran services, it deals with your EMS, your fire, libraries, schools, all those things that people have voted on because they feel that the people in charge are doing a good job with those property tax dollars. The thing we have to do is deal with, because of the values increase and because of the millage, doing certain things, that the increase in property taxes was very high these last 5 years.
As Mr. Hoops points out, in Ohio, the state does not benefit from property taxes. They benefit, as you said, school districts, county-level services, municipalities, and townships for things like police and fire protection, road maintenance, special districts such as libraries, parks, and developmental disability services. In other words, necessary services from entities who are wondering if the property tax is repealed and those who are working to repeal the property tax are moving forward on their effort to do so. The smart money from most of the people that I've talked to say if this goes before voters, it would most likely pass. Even though the state does not benefit from property taxes, they would look to the state to figure out where the funding for all of those things that property taxes cover come from. So, with these entities wondering if that happens, where would our funding come from? What do you tell them? Well, where would that money come from, Mr. Hoops?
Well, I think, the taxes that are collected in the state would usually come from property taxes, sales tax, or income tax. And I know I've been talking with groups who support this. They're saying, well, you can just increase the income tax. Well, I can tell you the legislature just got done over the last 4 budgets lowering the income tax down to a competitive level of 2.75. So are we going to come back and increase the income tax? I think that'll be a tough sell down there. With sales tax, that'll be another issue because I've been told that it's going to be about 18% across the state on the average, but every county will be different. I mean, you have the border counties who have to deal with people going across the state, to buy things because the sales tax is too high. Somewhere we're going to have to come up with, the $24 billion, that right now the property tax collected. Now on the other side, we also have to look at the spending side. What are we going to do there on the local level and even on the state level? I mean, those are the kind of things that we're going to have to work through in talking with it. I mean, another way that we could possibly generate some dollars is we have this pot of natural gas on the east side of Ohio, and we could use some of that to generate some revenue. So I think there might be ways, but all I want to see happen is that we have a sound debate on this issue so everybody realizes what the actions that we do if it passes in November, how it's going to affect people, so everybody's up front in dealing with this issue. It's one of those things, be careful what you ask for because, there's going to be a lot of things that will be changed, and maybe that's what people want. We'll find out if it gets on the ballot and whether they pass it or not.
And Mr. Riedel.
Yeah, so this all does play together, okay? When I said that we need to take a Doge look at state government spending and local government spending, it all goes together, all right? So those savings that we can find, hopefully the state will upend its responsibility and fund public schools properly, okay? The way you have to go about this is you have to find, we're not going to raise taxes. That's not going to happen. We have to find savings. You have to find wasteful government spending on all levels, okay? The state of Ohio needs to step up and properly fund schools. Well, how do you do that? Well, you have to find savings, you have to find that wasteful spending and reallocate that to the public schools. On the local level, you have to find that wasteful spending. I come from a business background. You look at processes, you look at efficiencies. Where can you cut costs? Where can you save money? For instance, if you got a county with maybe, let's say, 7 public schools, do we really need 7 superintendents? Do we need 7 treasurers? Maybe we can get by with 5 or 6 or 4 or 5, okay? Those sorts of things have to be looked at. And it takes, I believe, someone with that business background that's willing to make those tough decisions, because these are going to be a lot of tough decisions we got to make going forward, because we're not going to raise taxes. We don't have a revenue problem here in Ohio. We have a spending problem. We don't know how to manage money. In 2019, I voted against the gas tax increase. My opponent voted for it. We didn't need to raise the gas tax in 2019. The money was available to do what we wanted to accomplish. I would even suggest even today we might want to consider, with the price of gas going up like it is, maybe the state of Ohio should look at reducing its gas tax to help our businesses around Ohio.
I want to expand a little bit on that because you touched on it again. You mentioned it in an earlier response, talking about waste in state government being rampant. That was the word that you used, rampant. Do you have specifics where you can cite with respect to that description? And what would be in the crosshairs if you were elected?
Yeah. So you want me to respond, Chris?
Yes, please.
Yeah, everything's on the table. Absolutely everything needs to be analyzed and reviewed, okay? That's the way the real world works. That's the way the business world works. Everything is on the table to be analyzed and reviewed. I gave an example of the Somalia daycares. That's low-hanging fruit right there. But we definitely need, and I'm really optimistic with Vivek Ramaswamy being our next governor, because he thinks this way. All right, don't be surprised if there's a program or some sort of a department here in Ohio in the next few years where there's a group of people that have that skill set that can look at each of these line items and determine whether or not they're necessary or maybe they are, okay? But everything is on the table. Everything needs to be analyzed. And until we have the fortitude to do this, we're just going to continue to go down the same path we've been going. So, like I said, everything's on the table for review, and it's critical that we have the courage to do that.
And Mr. Hoops, would you concur that waste is rampant in state government, and what areas would you target?
No, I disagree with him. I think, as a Republican Party, we've been in charge for many years, and my opponent was down there too during his 6 years, and I didn't see much of an effort there to try to look for waste. With the budgets, we do a budget every 2 years, and believe me, we scour the budget lines. We look at the lines. We have a state auditor that also looks at things. We actually have a DOGE type program right now in the state that looks at waste. So we're already doing a lot of those issues. One of the things, and we can continue to look at those issues, but to say, that you have Speaker Huffman and Senator McCauley and telling them that they're part of the swamp and that they're not doing their job, I think that's disingenuous. And we'll continue to look at those issues, but I think I don't see the waste. Now, some of the things, he talked about school funding. Well, if we increase school funding, where's that money going to come from? And then you have health care issues. You have, Medicaid. I always say the budget is to, you educate, medicate, and incarcerate. Those are the big budgets out there that you're sending money out, to the people for services. And aging, Department of Aging, nursing homes, all those kind of things that I think that's where we have to look at, some of the issues locally, and just how they're spending the money. The daycare centers with the Somalias, we are looking into that. We've already been doing things before this hit in Minnesota. We were actually, that's already been ongoing to make sure that the taxpayers' dollars are spent wisely. Then when you look at the lower levels, the local levels, people, if they don't like what the elected officials are doing, they don't get reelected. So there's ways of protecting them.
You are listening to tonight's Candidate Forum, featuring the two candidates in the Republican primary race for State Senate in District 1, Jim Hoops and Craig Riedel. I'm Chris Oakes, WFIN and the Findlay-Hancock County Chamber of Commerce, bringing you tonight's Candidate Forum from 50 North, and we have reached the halfway point of our hour this evening. We will take a brief break and return with more of our Q&A session. We got 2 minutes.
And 95.5 FM.
Spring is here and Easter is right around the corner. Order your flowers from Sink's Flower Shop and Greenhouse today. You can count on Sink's 100% for floral arrangements that exceed your expectations. Colorful mixed arrangements, fresh foliage plants, potted plants, and more. Make your Easter holiday memorable with a wide variety of beautiful flowers and centerpiece arrangements from Sink's Flower Shop and Greenhouse. Order your flowers today from Sink's, 2700 North Main Street, Findlay.
Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Look no further than PCNet Techs, your locally owned and trusted partner for IT solutions. Whether you're a small startup or a large enterprise, they've got the tools and expertise to propel you forward. They can assist you with a one-time project or provide ongoing support. From hardware and software to managed services, they tailor solutions to you. Call 833-5IT-TECH or visit pc-net-techs.com, where innovation meets excellence.
You didn't expect that fender bender or that tree on the garage, but you can expect T.R. Williams Insurance Agency to have you covered. Your independent agency representing many of the top insurance companies: auto, motorcycle, RVs, home, renters, farm, and commercial. T.R. Williams does the shopping for you with no pressure sales and honest second opinions. Call 423-3720 for a free quote. 601 Tiffin Avenue, Findlay, and at trwilliamsinsurance.com. Have faith. We'll keep you safe.
Your home of the Guardian is 1330 WFIN and 95.5 FM.
The Guardians open the season Thursday night at Seattle. Pregame at 9:35.
Welcome back. Once again, I'm Chris Oakes. Whether you are joining us on air, online, or in person here at 50 North, WFIN, and the Findlay-Hancock County Chamber of Commerce, thank you for joining us for tonight's candidate forum. Once again, we are speaking with the two candidates in the Republican primary race for State Senate in District 1. That would be Jim Hoops and Craig Riedel. And we have one more question related to taxes that I want to pose. May not be the last time it comes up, but one more question with relation to this. Representative Tom Young, a fellow Republican from Washington Township, has proposed a measure to eliminate taxes on capital gains in Ohio, which by some estimates would create a $650 million annual hit in the state budget. While everyone is in favor of lower taxes whenever possible, is it wise and prudent to move forward with something like that proposal, especially at a time when, as we were talking earlier, so much with the property tax question is in flux, and we've just seen the flat tax for the flat income tax take effect? Would it be wiser to wait to see how that all shakes out? We'll begin with Mr. Hoops.
Well, I think, the one thing is that, with 99 legislators, you get quite a few different ideas. And that's an idea I think worth looking at, because what that does is that it would, for retirees, they wouldn't have to pay taxes on, it's not really new income as far as producing income. It's based on your investments and things like that. And that might, bring people back here to Ohio because of doing something like that. Now, on the same, the same thing is that when you look at those type of positions that you're taking on taxes, every time I was a candidate, I'd get a questionnaire, and the first question would be, are you in agreement with lowering taxes or getting rid of taxes? And then the second question would always be, if you said yes to question number one, what services, what would you do so that, because we have to balance the budget. So I think that's something, that we'll have to look at, the fiscal report that would be put out on that. And you mentioned the amount of money it would be. And it's just a matter of, where are you going to cut the services or cut some of the programs? And then on the other side is that going to generate more revenue in other ways because of what you're doing? So those are all the things that I look at. I just don't want to say, yeah, let's do it. We really have to look at those type of programs and those actions to see how it's really going to affect the state of Ohio.
Thank you. Mr. Rito.
I think that what you're hearing here is a major difference between myself and Representative Hoops, how I look at the economy. It's clear that Jim is content with the way things are going. He's fine with that. I'm not. We need bold leadership in our General Assembly. There are people who are willing to make these very difficult decisions. All right? Our situation right now with the property tax, this is a dire situation. It's the go along to get along, that's got to stop. We need bold leadership here. And so I believe in limited government. Jim is content with the way things are going. That's clear. Chris, to answer your question, absolutely, we need a capital gains reduction. That would be great for the economy, more money in people's pockets. That's more money to spend. That prospers the economy, and that generates more tax revenue. So I absolutely think that would be a terrific idea.
Real quickly, just to be clear, the proposed measure, Representative Young's measure, would eliminate capital gains taxes. You use the word reduction.
Okay.
Would you support an elimination of the capital gains tax?
The capital gains tax, yeah. I know that's what Vivek Ramaswamy is talking about. I think it's a terrific idea, and I'd like to help him get that accomplished.
I just want to get that, clarify that. Did you want to follow up?
I just want to say, I'm not going to rely on the governor to, I want to see things change, but you also have to be responsible. When you put me in this position, we have to make sure we balance the budget. We have the services out there that are needed by people, because when we start looking at these kind of things, and it's not that I'm against it, I'm just saying we have to be responsible, because you put me in that position to do that. And when we start cutting things, we also have to start cutting services and things over here. And that's, I feel that's very important to look at, and that is a big difference. He's just saying cut this, cut that, but he's not really, where are we going to cut the services then? And be more specific. Just don't say you're looking for government waste, because I didn't see any prime examples of the waste that he's talking about. And a lot of these things are programs that are done locally, dealing with healthcare issues, with nursing homes, like I said, with schools. He's talked about wanting to fund schools more. Well, where's that money going to come from? And we have to be responsible elected officials too.
Mr. Riedel?
Yeah, I've made it clear where that money comes from. It comes from eliminating wasteful government spending, okay? It takes discipline. All of this is on the table. If you're happy with the status quo, then this is your representative over here. If you want change, if you want bold leadership, then I'm your choice, all right? The status quo is not acceptable. Until you actually dive into this and look for that wasteful spending, it's there. It's there. I know this is a big issue for Vivek Ramaswamy, and I want to help him get this accomplished. But the status quo is unacceptable. We need bold leadership in the General Assembly, people that are really willing to dig in, dive into this, and work extremely hard to find this wasteful spending. How you reduce taxes, how you offset that is you reduce spending. That reduction in spending becomes a tax credit, it turns into tax relief for the citizen.
Last week, HB 646 unanimously passed the House. If agreed to by the state Senate and signed by the governor, it would create a commission to study the potential impact of data centers in Ohio and help lawmakers come up with a policy regarding their development. Ohio already has some 200 data centers, fifth most in the country, with an additional $40 billion in investments projected by the end of this decade. Mm-hmm. Is this rapid expansion of data centers in Ohio a good thing, and what do you believe should be included in any policy regulating their development? We'll begin with Mr. Hoops.
Well, I think data centers are something we need to look at. I think the biggest, the important thing is to educate ourselves, to find out exactly what these things will do as far as environmental issues, water, energy issues. I think this bill probably should have been done a year ago. But we didn't really know the data centers were coming up. On the side of security, I mean, we want to stay ahead of, when you talk about the worldwide, we want to stay ahead of China, Russia, the Koreans, with these type of things. And by having data centers, we kind of control our way of thinking. One of the issues out there is the sales tax exemption, which was put in back during Governor Kasich's administration. We put in this last budget to take away that sales tax exemption, but then the governor vetoed it, and we're looking at overriding that veto because, again, that's revenue that can be used, in the state. Now, whether, but I think we still need to understand what these data centers really mean. And the other thing, I think the most important thing is that we need to make sure that we put in any type of legislation, just like I made sure with solar and wind, it can be a good project if you want it in your area. If you don't want it in your area, then I think whether it's the commissioner level or the township level, they should have that ability to say, we do not want these projects, in this area. Now, there's other places where they may want it. And so that's some of the things that we have to take a look at. And I feel this committee will be able to kind of bring those things out to be discussed and find out what Ohioans want with these data centers.
Thank you. Mr. Rito.
Yeah, so it's clear the reason these data centers want to locate, particularly here to Ohio, is they're after our natural resources. Ohio is blessed with an abundance of natural gas, which obviously that's electricity, and we're blessed with an abundance of water. And that's what these particular data centers are needing to operate. But not just data centers, other industries as well. Steel manufacturing plants, they need that electricity in particular. What I believe is that we definitely do not need to bend over backwards for these companies to come to Ohio. We have what they want. Okay, we have what they want. So definitely no tax incentives, no tax abatements. They have to pay their way. They have to pay their way. The citizens here in Ohio should not have to pay higher electric rates because these data centers are locating here. The data centers, the company themselves, should absorb all of those costs. It's probably a really good idea that they have their own supply of electricity on site, so their own small gas-powered plants, some small modular reactor. Definitely we don't want these data centers located on prime farmland. They need to locate on brownfield areas. And I believe in local control. This should be a community decision. When I was a sponsor of House Bill 118, which was an identical bill to Senate Bill 52, that dealt with wind and solar development. And I'm very proud of that bill. That gave local control when it came to wind and solar development to the county commissioners. And it took the power away from the Ohio Power Siting Board and gave it to the county commissioners. We gave the power back to the people with that bill, and I'm very proud of that. And I think we need to look at something very similar to that when it comes to data centers. But they definitely need to be off the grid. They need to supply their own electricity, and citizens should not have to pay higher electricity rates.
Both of you are staunch pro-life advocates. Your respective campaign websites highlight your support of the heartbeat bill in Ohio, for example. Of course, we know in 2023, voters approved a constitutional amendment prohibiting government interference with reproductive decisions, including abortion, and yet Republicans have continued to test the limits of that amendment with proposed legislation. How far would you push for additional pro-life legislation? We'll begin with Mr. Riedel on this one.
Yeah, I'm proudly pro-life. My wife and I, Danette, we are pro-life champions. We are very proudly pro-life. My faith leads me that way. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Catholic Christian. And one of the proudest moments I had as a legislator was in April of 2019, and that was voting for the heartbeat bill. We've been endorsed by the Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio, also been endorsed by Ohio Right to Life, and very proud of that. So anything, as a legislator, anything that I can do to protect life, I'm going to do it. So I like this bill that's down there right now that would require a 24-hour waiting period before an abortion would occur. We have to do things of that nature to make, to protect life. So obviously legislators' hands, the General Assembly, their hands are tied by that constitutional amendment. But I think as whatever we can do, no matter what it might be, even something as simple as requiring a 24-hour waiting period, it may save a life. And every life is sacred and precious.
Thank you. Mr. Hoops.
Yeah, Chris, I strong supporter, pro-life. My wife, Deb, is a pro-life supporter. Supported the heartbeat bill. The constitutional issue that was passed in Ohio, very disappointed in that. I think we need to continually find ways to educate mothers, and fathers of the baby, that there are other ways besides abortion. Sometimes I'm beginning to realize that there's a lot of things that we can't change legislatively. And what I mean by that is some of the things have to deal with changing the heart and the mind of people. And we passed a bill out of the House, it's over in the Senate, the Baby Olivia bill, which will require schools putting, a tape in to show the birth of a baby, so they really understand that that is a life. So there's other things. My opponent mentioned the bill yesterday that we passed out of the House, a 24 waiting period, which I voted yes and co-sponsored that bill. I mean, those are things that we can do. I think the other thing too in this area is that women who have had an abortion, we need to be right there to support them. And if they have the baby, we need to be right there to support them through adoptions, through foster care, making them realize that, hey, there's going to be a group here that's going to support you. And those are the kind of things I feel we can do, to get people to realize that there's caring people out there, and those kind of things I feel are going to save the lives, of babies, and then just keep working on it and find ways and not attack. Like I said, if there's somebody that had an abortion, surround them with love and make sure they know that we're here to help them out, because when they have that, it's got to be, they just have to be turning inside because they had the abortion. We need to support them.
I have a follow-up on that. Some, even within the party, have suggested that perhaps there is too much time and energy being focused on these culture war issues, whether we're talking about abortion, limiting drag shows, revising vaccine requirements, so on and so forth. When there are so many other more, I want to say important issues, but other issues that impact, some of which we have talked about this evening. Do we spend too much time and energy on these culture war issues? We'll begin with Mr. Hoops.
Well, I think they're very important issues. I mean, I think there's also important issues with, economic issues, because a lot of these things, when you talk about, families, that are dealing with, mental health issues, abortion issues, a lot of times if they have a good job, that may keep them from having to deal with these other issues. So I think whether we spend a lot of time on it, I think they're very important issues, because that kind of dictates what our culture is going to be like. And if we get to the point that we don't really care about the unborn, I think other things fall in place that aren't good. And so I think we have to continually look at those things. But again, I think it's a matter of, when we start doing those things, we have to, take a step back, listen to people, where are they coming from, and then be there to support them so we can continually, lower those, for instance, the abortion issue, because you had a lot of groups coming, or women coming over to Ohio because of that constitutional issue. And so I think it's something we have to address, because that's our future and that's our culture. And if we don't support those, what's going to happen in the future with other social issues?
Mr. Rito?
Yeah, I think that this is critically important. Our country has drifted from those, Christian conservative values that we cherish. United States was based on Judeo-Christian values and beliefs. And I believe that's what makes America so special and so unique to the rest of the world. It's those Judeo-Christian values. I mean, that's the founding fathers. I mean, those gentlemen. There was certainly divine intervention that was involved in the writing of the Constitution. So yeah, this has become a culture war. The woke radical left, they're trying to impose their agenda on us. We really saw a pickup of it during the Obama administration and the Biden administration. So, something as simple as women playing or men playing against women in sports in Ohio, that's morally wrong. That's common sense. That's black and white. Men should not be competing against girls in sports in Ohio. And in June of 2021, my opponent voted to allow that to happen. Okay, I was on the floor. I took the exact same vote that evening, and I voted to prevent it. But for some strange reason, my opponent voted, he didn't stop it. He had the opportunity 2 times that evening to stop it. That sort of radical woke agenda, those beliefs, we got to stop it, okay? Because it's anti-American. It's not what made this country the greatest country in the world. And I'm going to fight. I'm going to fight as the state senator from this part of Ohio for those Christian conservative values that we cherish, and that makes not just Northwest Ohio special, but all of America.
Well, do I get?
Yeah.
All I want to say is there he goes again lying about my record.
It's not a lie, Jim. It's a fact.
Taking it out of
the record is the record.
Well,
taking it out of context.
Yep.
What actually happened on that day is it was a Senate Bill 187. The Senate told us, because we were hearing things, that they were going to try to put this amendment, which I support. I have always supported men not playing women's sports. The Save Women sport, I have always supported that. What happened is that the Senate said, because this was kind of the last day of the General Assembly, they said if you put this on the House floor, the Senate bill will die. And that was Senator McCauley and Senator Huffman. And I said, well, if that happens, we're going to lose all the legislation. So when the bill became, the Senate bill came on the Senate floor, and they tried to put this amendment in, I voted to table it because I knew the legislation was going to die. And guess what happened? The legislation, the tabling failed. I then supported the bill to get out of the House, the Senate bill out of the House, and guess what? The Senate bill died, and we lost an opportunity there to deal with that because we didn't have any other opportunities, and that's why it came up as House Bill 68, which I supported the 2 years ago, but it had nothing to do with whether I supported the legislation or not. And you know that very well, Craig, because if you don't understand what tabling does, and you were in the caucus when they talked about it.
All right,
when they
let's
said
give
the Senate was going to kill the bill.
Let's give Mr. Riedel a chance to respond.
Let's talk about the facts. The facts are this. It was June 24th of 2021. Jim voted with every Democrat on the floor to allow men to compete against women in sports in Ohio. That is a fact, and it happened twice the same evening, okay? It's not a lie, Jim.
Yes, it
the
is.
record is the record. Anybody can look this up. Anyone can look this up. It's a fact, 100% factual. I voted with 53 other Republicans to stop it, and thank goodness we were there to prevent men from competing against women in sports. Jim's explanation is all politics, okay? You had a chance to make the right decision that evening. You made the wrong choice. I made the right choice. I voted to protect girls in Ohio. I voted to protect my 3 granddaughters in Ohio. And that is the fact. The fact is the fact. The vote is the vote. It's all on record, Jim.
That is a complete taken out of context. It was a vote to table the issue. It had nothing to do with the legislation, Craig. It had to deal with knowing, then you're going to have to get upset with Senator McCauley and Senator
They
Huff.
didn't take that vote, Jim. You did.
But they killed the bill because the bill
It
didn't
had
go
nothing.
anywhere.
Yes,
it did. It had everything to do with
the
it.
vote was on whether to prevent men from
No.
competing against girls in sports in Ohio.
I have
you
always-
took the wrong side of the issue. I took the right side.
I have
We're
always
gonna-
supported House
You
Bill
didn't that
68
night, Jim. You did not.
because it was going to
Yeah,
die.
2 years later
it
you
died.
did. 2 years later.
You
did.
understand?
We're going to make those.
That's
we're
all
going to make those the
politics.
final comments because we are running out of time, and we will move on to the closing statements because our hour is almost complete. And once again, another 2 minutes for each candidate for their final thoughts and closing remarks. And we'll begin with Mr. Hoops.
Do I start again? Because I started first. You want him? Okay.
Good.
Well, I just want to thank you for allowing us to be here tonight. This race has been very interesting because there's a lot of things being taken out of context. And again, I want to illustrate that I do support, and I did support and co-sponsored House Bill 68, which supported it was a Save Women's Sports Act, to take men from being able to play in women's sports. And that's a big issue because what's happening here is he's questioning my integrity. And what I said to the householder when he questioned my integrity is that maybe he needs to look at more his integrity than to question mine. I mean, this is really something that, it's unbelievable how he's trying to portray this vote that I took because it was a tabling action, because I knew at the end of the day that Senate bill would be eliminated. As I go across the Senate district, it's been very warming and really thankful that meeting a lot of people in this first Senate district. I consider myself a workhorse, not a show horse. I get things done. In fact, when you look at the endorsements that I had, which includes being endorsed by the Buckeye Firearms, NRA, the Ohio Right to Life, and the other thing that I've been endorsed by over 50-plus elected officials across the 1st Senate District. And I asked them, well, why are you endorsing me? And it's because they said I get things done and that we may not always agree on things, but they know that you understand the district, you'll get things done, and you'll be there for us at the end of the day. And I appreciate the time tonight. I would appreciate your vote, and I look forward to getting to know more of you in these last 30 days.
Thank you. And Mr. Rito.
Thank you, Chris. It's been great to be here. I'm the America First conservative in this race. I'm the America First conservative in this race. Our campaign is going terrific. We're working incredibly hard. We feel as though we're in a very strong position. My wife and I and our campaign manager, we've been going door to door since last September. Since then, we've gotten to over 17,000 homes throughout the district. Very encouraged by those conversations. Great part of Ohio. We've been endorsed, our candidacy's been endorsed by Americans for Prosperity, by Ohio Value Voters, by the Associated Builders and Contractors of Ohio, Ohio Right to Life Action Coalition of Ohio. Very proud of those endorsements. We've also been endorsed by 5 sitting senators, Susan Manchester, Mark Romanchuk, Teresa Gavarone, George Lang, and then the next president of the Ohio Senate, Bill Reineke, has also endorsed our candidacy for this Senate seat. Very proud of that. So this race is really boiling down to a matter of trust, okay? Jim has a record of raising taxes. He's done it twice in his tenure. The cat tax 20 years ago, the gas tax 7 years ago. It's a trust. Who do you trust with your wallet? I'm not going to raise your taxes. Who's going to make that hard decision when the pressure's on? I voted no on House Bill 6. Jim voted to go along to get along. He voted yes. And then who's going to protect your Christian conservative values when it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you're in bed and we're in Columbus still working away? Who do you trust defending your Christian conservative values? So very humbly, my wife and I, we ask for your support, your vote on May 5th. We're going to work incredibly hard to represent you from Northwest Ohio. More importantly, we ask for your prayers because evil is very real. My friend Jim Jordan likes to quote, and I love this scripture, 2 Timothy 4:7, fight the good fight, finish the course, and keep the faith. do the right thing, never give up, and trust in the Lord. It'd be an honor to be your state senator here from Northwest Ohio. Thank you for having us.
We'd like to thank both of the candidates for taking part in this evening's forum, and thank you for joining us this evening. For those who may have joined us late, a reminder that tonight's forum will be available to view on demand on our Facebook page at 1330 WFIN. Also a reminder, Election Day is Tuesday, May 5th. Early voting begins April 7th. I'm Chris Oakes. Good night.
Sinks Flower Shop and Greenhouse and PCNet. The preceding has been a special presentation from your news authority, 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and 95.5 FM.
Covering the nation and the world with Fox News Radio. Statewide coverage from the Ohio News Network and local and regional news from the WFIN newsroom. 1330 WFIN, WFIN.com, and 95.5.